Your future isn't destroyed in a sudden accident. It gets destroyed in silence. Every time you negotiate with your discipline, you don't see it happening, but every "I'll start tomorrow," every "one day won't make a difference," is a stab in the heart of the life you say you want. And if you keep living that way, your future is already dying. Look back at your last week. How many times did you know exactly what needed to be done, but still chose the easier path? How many promises stayed trapped in your mind because you chose immediate comfort over the discomfort that leads to transformation? Every one of those moments was a brick pulled out from the bridge that's meant to take you toward your future. Now that bridge is weak, full of cracks you created with your own hands. Most people think they lose their future when something big goes wrong, when a project fails, when they lose a job, when a relationship ends. But the truth is much crueler. You lose your future in the small, quiet moments. In the 5 extra minutes in bed. In the junk food you swore off but talked yourself into. In the "I'll do it later" that never actually happens. That's where discipline starts to fall apart. Discipline falls, everything else falls with it. The most dangerous part? You don't even notice it. Discipline doesn't snap all at once. It erodes silently, like a rope fraying thread by thread until one day it can't hold anything. And when you look back, you realize it wasn't one big failure that ruined your future. It was you, draining your own strength every time you gave in without even realizing it. I've been there. I used to believe my life would change with one big, dramatic decision, a heroic leap, a perfect day full of motivation. But no, my life changed, whether for better or worse, because of the tiny, daily choices. The simple yes and no's I repeated without thinking. The habit of negotiating with myself. The voice in my head that always had a reason for giving up just a little, and I listened to it like it was telling the truth. Discipline isn't just one piece of your life. It's the hidden engine driving your entire future. You can be talented, smart, full of ideas, surrounded by opportunities. But if you don't have discipline, all of that slips away like sand through your fingers. Talent without discipline rusts. Ideas without discipline die in notebooks. Opportunities without discipline become painful memories of what could have been. Need proof? Look around you. How many people do you know who are smarter than you, more talented, even luckier, and still stuck? It's not because life is against them. It's because their discipline isn't strong enough to carry what they say they want. And the same thing will happen to you if you don't wake up now. Discipline is the muscle that determines whether your future will be solid or fragile. Every time you follow through on your word, that muscle gets stronger. Every time you compromise, it weakens. And here's the harsh truth. There's no middle ground. Every decision is a vote, for or against your future. Maybe you're thinking, one off day doesn't change anything. But one off day turns into a pattern. And that pattern becomes your identity. And your identity, sooner or later, shapes your destiny. That's how you lose your future. Not with a huge failure, but by getting used to losing in small, invisible ways. Here's the truth no one wants to face. Every time you break your discipline, you're choosing a weaker version of your future. And you're doing it with your own hands. It's not the economy, not politics, not bad luck. It's how you face yourself every morning. And if every morning you choose to give in, even just a little, your future gets smaller. But the opposite is also true. Every small act of discipline is a seed planted in your future. Even if you don't see it now, even if it feels like it means nothing, every disciplined choice adds up. One day you'll look around and realize it wasn't motivation or magic that got you there. It was discipline. Quiet, invisible, repeated discipline. The kind that held you up while others fell. That's why this isn't about hype or fake motivation. It's about showing you that your future is being written right now, in the choices you make when no one is watching, in the silent battles you win or lose when no one's clapping for you. So let me ask you directly, what kind of future are you building today with your discipline? Because it doesn't matter what you say you want. The only thing that matters is what your discipline actually supports. And if you feel like you're losing that discipline, you're probably right. You're losing it in the invisible, in the everyday, in the things that seem too small to matter. But those same moments, that's exactly where you can take it back. If you choose to take it back, you won't need luck. You won't need special talent. Because discipline, and only discipline, is what shapes your future. Most people live trapped in a lie, believing that their future depends on talent, luck, connections, intelligence. And while they hold on to that illusion, they ignore the one thing that actually decides everything: discipline. It's not easy to accept, because if life depended on luck, you could blame fate. If it depended on talent, you could say, I wasn't born with it. But when you finally realize it all depends on discipline, you run out of excuses, and that hurts. Discipline is the uncomfortable truth because it forces you to look directly at your own daily compromises. You're not failing because you can't. You're failing because you keep putting off what you know you should do. And the worst part is that you keep convincing yourself that tomorrow will be better, that you'll have more willpower later, that you'll be ready next week. But the truth? Tomorrow never comes. And if it does, it shows up weaker, because the discipline you didn't practice today won't magically appear later. Look around again. How many people started something with excitement? A diet, a project, a habit. Everyone starts strong, but only a few keep going. Why? Because they think the beginning is what matters. But the only thing that matters is consistency. The start gives you a spark, but only discipline keeps the fire burning. That's why so many people feel stuck year after year. They change the goal, change the promises, change the speeches, but they never change the discipline. And when the discipline doesn't change, the results don't change either. I learned this the hard way. For years, I kept lying to myself, thinking I needed motivation to act. I waited to feel inspired. I waited for the perfect day. I waited for everything to align. And while I was waiting, the months kept passing, until I finally realized the obvious. Motivation can start a movement, but only discipline can carry it to the finish line. Discipline isn't a luxury reserved for the few. It's not some rare virtue that only the strongest possess. It's a choice, one that's available to anyone. But here's the tough truth. Almost no one chooses it, because discipline is uncomfortable. And yet, that discomfort is what builds a future worth living. Look at any area of your life. You want health? Wanting it isn't enough. You need daily discipline to take care of yourself. You want financial stability? Dreaming about it won't get you there. You need discipline to spend less, save more, stay consistent. You want deep, meaningful relationships? Good intentions won't. You need discipline to listen, to show up, to forgive, to stay present. Everything you say you want boils down to one word: discipline. And if you don't have it, it'll never truly be yours. But the mind is always looking for shortcuts. It tells you, doing it every now and then is enough. It whispers, you've worked hard already, relax a little. It convinces you that discipline is too rigid, too harsh. What it doesn't tell you is this: every time you negotiate with your discipline, you're handing your future over to mediocrity. Yes, it's uncomfortable, because accepting this truth means admitting that if you're not where you want to be, it's not because you can't do it. It's because your discipline hasn't been strong enough. That's the truth we don't like to face. Our results don't reflect our wishes, they reflect our discipline. And if your discipline is weak, your future will be too. But here's what's surprising. Once you understand this, something inside you starts to shift. You can't keep lying to yourself, saying, it's just bad luck, or it wasn't meant for me. Because you know where the problem lives, right there in your daily actions. In the things you stay consistent with, and the things you quietly let fall. And that awareness, while it hurts, also gives you back your power. Because if discipline is what decides your future, then your future is still in your hands. Discipline isn't a prison. It's not something that takes your freedom away. In fact, it's the only force that gives you real freedom. People who lack discipline may look free, but they're slaves to their impulses and emotions. On the other hand, someone who is disciplined becomes the master of themselves. And once you master yourself, you become the master of your destiny. That's why you need this wake-up call. Not to make you feel guilty, but to wake you up. Because every day you lose discipline, you lose a piece of your future. And every day you choose to hold on to it, taking that future back. So stop lying to yourself. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop thinking that tomorrow you'll be stronger. The uncomfortable truth is this: your future is being decided right now by the discipline you choose to practice today. And if you're losing it in the small things, you're losing it in everything. Discipline rarely collapses in one dramatic moment. It fades through tiny cracks that seem harmless. And because they seem harmless, you ignore them. Until one day, you wake up and realize those little cracks have become a giant canyon. It all starts with a small concession. I'll skip the workout today, it's not a big deal. 5 more minutes in bed. Breaking the diet just this once won't kill me. Those phrases feel innocent, but each one is a silent vote in favor of weakness. And those votes after day, decision after decision, you slowly shape a version of yourself that doesn't keep its promises. Discipline works like a muscle. It doesn't weaken overnight. It atrophies from lack of use. Every time you give in, that muscle gets softer. Every time you delay, it loses strength. And the most dangerous part? You don't feel the loss right away. You think everything's fine until the moment you actually need that muscle, and it's not there for you. Take a close look at your life. How many times did you say, "Doesn't matter today"? Those moments didn't disappear. They were recorded. Every time you gave in to yourself, it left a... And here's the brutal part. Your brain learns fast. The easier it was to give up, the easier it becomes next time. That's how discipline erodes. Not with one big blow, but with a constant drip of compromise. Imagine a rock under running water. The water doesn't break it in a day. It wears it down slowly, silently, until it shapes it. That's exactly how the lack of discipline works. It doesn't destroy you all at once. It wears you down in silence. And when you finally notice it, you're no longer the same person. You've gotten used to giving in, to making excuses, to negotiating away your potential. Your character was shaped by that invisible drip. The trickiest part? Every small surrender comes wrapped in logic. I'm tired today. Better to wait for Monday. Why push so hard? They all sound reasonable, but they're just traps. And while you follow them, you're handing your future away, drop by drop. I lived that cycle. I remember seasons where every single day, I'd convince myself it was okay to rest just a little more. One day, then another, and another, until I looked back and realized a whole month had gone by, and I hadn't moved forward at all. It wasn't a dramatic crash. It was 100 tiny, invisible compromises that piled up. That's what kills your future, silent accumulation. The trap is this: your brain will always chase comfort. It will always prefer today's relief over tomorrow's reward. And because that relief feels so good in the moment, you convince yourself it's the right choice. You don't see the cost, because the bill doesn't come right away. It comes later, when it's already too late to fix what's been lost. Every "I'll start tomorrow" is a debt you're stacking up. And like any debt, it comes with interest. The interest of lost discipline is this: years of your life that won't come back, opportunities you buy, and worst of all, the trust you lost in yourself. And that's what hurts the most. Realizing that what you're paying for today is the price of every small excuse you told yourself yesterday. But there's something you need to engrave in your mind. Discipline also builds in the opposite direction. Just like every surrender weakens you, every act of loyalty to yourself makes you stronger. Every time you follow through on what you said you would do, even if it's small, you're depositing strength into your identity. And those deposits add up too. The real question is, what are you accumulating? Strength or weakness? Confidence or excuses? A version of you that's worthy of respect, or one that betrays itself? There is no neutral ground. Every choice moves you in a direction. The problem is that most people only wake up when the effects of their actions catch up with them. When their body breaks down, when their relationship goes cold, when the money runs out, when their self-trust disappears, and then they look back and ask, how did I get here? The answer is always the same. You got here because of the sum of all the small decisions you let slide. Discipline is fair, brutally fair. It gives you exactly what you've accumulated. It doesn't give out gifts, and it doesn't take anything away unjustly. It simply returns what you planted, day by day, action by action. If you plant excuses, you'll reap mediocrity. If you plant consistency, you'll reap greatness. That's why you have to wake up now, not later. Because today, whether you see it or not, you're accumulating. And what you accumulate today will be the life you live tomorrow. The hardest truth to face is this: your biggest enemy isn't out there. It's not your boss. It's not your partner. It's not a lack of opportunity. Your biggest enemy lives in your own head. And every day, it sits across from you at the table, tries to negotiate your discipline. It's that voice you hear when your alarm goes off. 5 more minutes. No. It's the whisper when it's time to start that important task. Check your phone first. You'll focus better after. It's the voice that wears the mask of logic, of self-care, of reason. But in reality, it only wants one thing: for you to stay the weak version of yourself. I know that voice too well. I've obeyed it hundreds of times. And every time, it convinced me with flawless arguments. You don't have the energy today. Tomorrow you'll be more productive. It's okay to break the routine just this once. You'll make up for it later. It sounded so rational, like it was protecting me. But every time I listened, I moved one step further away from the person I wanted to become. Here's the brutal truth: that inner voice never fully disappears. It's always there, waiting for a crack. Because your mind is wired to seek comfort. Comfort is the mortal enemy of discipline. The real war isn't against laziness. It's not against tiredness. It's not against external distractions. The real war is against that internal narrative, the one that justifies every surrender, That subtle, silent, persuasive dialogue inside your head. That sounds like a friend but works against you every time. Watch how it works. You decide to work out, and the voice says, "It's raining, just rest today." You decide to save money, and it whispers, "Go ahead, buy it. You deserve it." You decide to speak up, and it convinces you, "Now's not the right time. Just stay quiet." It never comes at you directly. It always shows up disguised as a reasonable suggestion. That's why it's so dangerous, because you follow it thinking you're doing the right thing. Most people lose this war because they never recognize the enemy. They think it's just them making decisions. They don't realize that voice is the echo of their old identity, the version of themselves that refuses to die. That's why, when you obey it, you're not just giving up an action, you're reinforcing a weak identity. I reached a point where I realized, if I don't confront that voice, I'll never move forward. And I discovered it in the simplest way, by observing it. Instead of obeying it instantly, I started listening with distance. It would say, "Don't do it today," and I'd think, "Interesting. That's the same excuse as always." That simple moment of awareness gave me space. I saw it wasn't me. It was the voice. And when you stop identifying with that voice, you get your power back. It's not about hating that voice. It's not about fighting it with rage. It's about recognizing it and disobeying it. Because every time you choose to act against that voice, you win an invisible battle. And those battles, when they accumulate, build a stronger identity. The internal war is daily. It doesn't matter how many times you won yesterday, the voice comes back today. But it also doesn't matter how many times you've given in before. Because today, you can start choosing differently. And that's the power of discipline. It doesn't depend on your past. It only depends on the choice you make right now. That's the difference between those who move forward and those who stay stuck. It's not that the winners never hear the voice. It's that they hear it and still act. That's the quiet victory. Not eliminating the temptation, but refusing to obey it. What happens when you start winning this inner war? Your confidence grows. Because you're no longer someone who betrays themselves. You're someone who follows through, even when every part of you wants to give up. And that kind of confidence becomes fuel. Every victory strengthens the next one. Every act of discipline becomes a reminder. I'm stronger than the weak voice inside me. Discipline is forged in this invisible battlefield, not in grand moments, but in those small, silent wars where no one is watching. That's where you decide whether your future will be solid or fragile. And if right now you feel like you're losing too many of those battles, don't punish yourself. Acknowledge it. Because awareness itself is a powerful act. And awareness is the first weapon against the voice. From this point forward, every time you hear it, remember, it's not your friend, it's not your truth, and it's not your destiny. It's just the resistance of your old self. And you don't belong to that self anymore. At some point, we all face the same crossroads. Either you keep negotiating with that voice that weakens you, or you decide your discipline is no longer negotiable. And that moment is always uncomfortable because it forces you to admit that you can't keep living the same way. Most people never make that radical decision. They keep delaying, keep justifying, keep hoping that one day, magically, they'll wake up with perfect discipline. But that day never comes. Discipline doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's a choice. A firm, almost violent one. The kind of decision that feels like drawing a line in the sand and saying, "I won't cross this line ever again." I experienced that moment in my own skin. There came a day when I was just tired of hearing myself repeat the same excuses. I caught myself making promises I never kept. That's when it hit me. It wasn't lack of knowledge or lack of tools. It was lack of decision. That was the first time I looked in the mirror and told myself the truth. That's it. I'm done negotiating with myself. It wasn't comfortable. It was painful, but it was also freeing. Because a radical decision doesn't mean you'll never fail again. It means that failure no longer defines who you are. What defines you now is your loyalty to your discipline. Even when you fall, your commitment stands. Your standard is no longer measured by your mood, but by the line you've decided not to cross. And that line might look small to others, but to you, it changes everything. It might mean waking up at a specific time and never justifying staying in bed again. It might mean keeping a simple habit, no matter what. It might mean finally stopping the negotiation around a promise you keep breaking. Greatness isn't born from massive decisions. It's born from commitments so solid, they become part of who you are. Look at the lives of those you admire. They didn't get where they are because they're more intelligent or lucky. They got there because one day, they made a radical decision. They decided some things were no longer up for debate, that certain excuses no longer had a place in their life. And from that moment on, their actions aligned with that decision, day after day. The problem is, most people want results without passing through that uncomfortable moment. They want change without paying the price of definition. But until you decide what you're no longer willing to negotiate, you'll stay stuck in the loop of starting and quitting, promising and failing, dreaming and getting frustrated. A radical decision is a point of no return. It's the day you stop living on autopilot and take control. And yes, it's scary. But that fear? It means you're going the right way. Because your old self always panics when it senses its end is near. I remember that fear clearly. It felt like something inside me was screaming, "Don't do it, this is too hard." But that was the moment I realized, if I didn't act, I'd stay a prisoner of my own comfort forever. And I chose to face the fear, rather than stay locked in an invisible cage. The radical decision isn't made to impress anyone. It's made in silence. Alone. When there's no audience. But that silent choice changes everything. Because after that, when the voice shows up again trying to pull you back, you'll already have your answer. I don't negotiate. That's power. To stop arguing with yourself. To stop wasting energy justifying what you already know is wrong. A strong identity isn't built from loud declarations. It's built from clarity. And with clarity, your discipline stops being fragile. So ask yourself, what are you no longer willing to negotiate? What line do you need to draw today so your life stops repeating itself? Because if you don't decide now, you'll stay spinning in the same cycle. And the only way out is this: a radical decision that redefines who you are. It won't be comfortable, but comfort never built a strong future, discomfort did. And when your discipline stops being negotiable, it becomes your unshakable foundation. Once that radical decision is made, the real work begins, forging discipline like steel. And steel isn't made with nice words. It's made with fire and repetition. Discipline isn't built on hype or fleeting inspiration. It's built through consistent, firm action. Every day, even when it hurts. Even when no one's watching. This is where people get confused. They think discipline is about huge sacrifices, grand gestures, dramatic transformation. But no, discipline is forged in the small, in decisions so minor, they seem irrelevant. Until one day, you realize they've changed your entire life. Think of simple examples. Someone who decides to read 5 pages a day won't notice a difference in a week, but after a year, they've read books others never touched. Someone who saves a little money every day might not feel richer tomorrow, but in a few years, they'll have a safety net that gives them freedom. Someone who trains for just 10 minutes a day may not see their body change instantly, but over time, their strength transforms. That's the law of steel. What is small, when done with discipline, becomes unbreakable. I learned this when I stopped making big promises and started keeping small, non-negotiable commitments. One simple action a day, small but sacred. At first, it felt ridiculous. But every day I followed through, my confidence grew. And I realized, it wasn't the size of the action that mattered, but the message I was sending to myself. I'm someone who follows through. That's how discipline is forged, through consistency. Every time you keep your word, even when no one's watching, you're building your character. Not to impress anyone else, but to prove to yourself that you can trust you. And once you trust yourself, discipline becomes steel. But make no mistake, this isn't comfortable. Just like steel, it needs heat and pressure. It means doing what's right when you're tired, when your mind screams to stop. It means getting up when your bed pulls you in, showing up when no one claps, holding the line when you've forgotten why you started. That's the fire that hardens your character. Most people fail here because they chase shortcuts. They want results without repetition, strength without sacrifice. But the path of steel has no shortcuts. Either you walk it with discipline, or you stay fragile. There is no middle ground. And the strange thing is, the more you repeat disciplined action, the less effort it takes. What started as a struggle becomes your new normal. You no longer say, I have to do this. You say, this is who I am. And that's when discipline no longer needs motivation. It becomes automatic, natural, solid. But it works the other way too. If you repeat weak actions long enough, they also become your identity. That's why this moment matters so much. Because what you do today, especially the small stuff, is shaping your future. Not just the big things. Every small choice counts. Because life isn't shaped by grand events. It's shaped by daily repetition. Discipline also requires a foundational principle: no negotiation. It's not about doing a lot. It's about doing what you committed to, no matter what. Because the day you learn not to negotiate with the small things, you also become the kind of person who won't negotiate with the big ones. And that kind of firmness follows you into everything you do. The path of steel isn't walked in a month, or even in a year. It's a lifetime journey. Every day is a chance to strengthen or weaken your character. Every day, you either add or subtract. And once you understand this, you stop looking for excuses and start seeking alignment. Because what's at stake isn't just a habit, it's your identity. In the end, the steel of your discipline is forged in silence. There are no cheers, no immediate recognition, just you and your actions, repeated until they become an unshakable force. And once you reach that level, your future stops being a wish. It becomes an inevitable result. The truth is simple. Even if it stings, your future is being decided in this exact moment. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel more motivated. Not when your circumstances finally change. It's being decided today in what you do when no one is watching. Because the future isn't something you predict, it's something you build. And the building material is your discipline. Every act you complete is a solid brick laid into your destiny. Every act you negotiate is a cracked brick that weakens the whole structure. And when your life eventually collapses, it won't be bad luck. It'll be because you built it on a shaky foundation. That's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to face. What you do in the small things is what determines the big ones. Your tomorrow doesn't depend on wishes. It depends on the consistency you uphold today. If you choose discipline today, your future gets stronger. If you choose excuses today, your future begins to crumble. Think about this. The you'll become in 5 years is already being born through the choices you're making this week. The body you'll have, the stability you'll enjoy, the opportunities that will appear. All of it is already written in your daily discipline. No mystery, no luck, no magic, just repeated actions that eventually shape your destiny. That's why this moment matters so much. Because today you decide whether your future will be worthy of you, or just another repetition of what's always been. Today you decide whether what you've dreamed becomes your reality, or just another painful memory. Today you decide if your discipline supports what you say you want, or if it silently destroys it. And hear this clearly, it's not about perfection. It's about loyalty, not about never failing, but about never quitting. Because discipline isn't about being flawless, it's about being unbreakable. And that strength is built by getting back up every time you fall, by reaffirming every day who you are and what you're no longer willing to negotiate. Imagine waking up each morning with the certainty that you're not a slave to your emotions. You're the master of your destiny. That's the freedom discipline gives you. The freedom to look in the mirror and trust the person looking back. The freedom to live without fear of the future because you know you're building it with your own hands. That freedom is yours if you choose to hold on to it. And it all starts right here, right now. Not with a grand promise, but with one act. Just one. That you follow through with today. That you repeat tomorrow. That becomes part of who you are, until your discipline is so strong, no one can take it from you. If these words resonated with you, subscribe now, to remind yourself every day that you're not willing to stay the same. Because here, we're many, and we've decided to change from the roots. Every new subscriber isn't just a number. It's a silent promise. This time, I follow through with myself. And don't stop here. Because if discipline is what builds your future, the most important part isn't just creating it. It's protecting it from everything that tries to tear it down. And that is what you'll discover in the next video.